Do you want to easily understand native English speakers? And do you want to open your mouth and have the words flow in a very fluent and natural way so you sound just like a native speaker? Well, that's exactly what we'll do in this 1-hour masterclass. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. Here's how this lesson will work. I'm going to say a sentence at a fast pace, at a natural pace 3 times, and you need to write down what you hear in the comments. Let's get started with the first listening exercise. I can't believe she sprung that on me. I can't believe she sprung that on me. I can't believe she sprung that on me. I said, I can't believe she sprung that on me. For this listening exercise, I don't think the pronunciation is difficult to understand, but you have to know this expression and understand what this expression means. So the expression I used is to spring something on someone. I can't believe she sprung. Sprung is the past simple of the verb spring. To spring, sprung. She sprung that. That is the something on me. When you spring something on someone, you suddenly ask or tell someone something that they weren't expecting. So let's say there is a presentation taking place 1 hour from right now. And my coworker was supposed to do this presentation. But just now, 1 hour before the presentation, my boss says, "Oh, by the way, Jennifer, I want you to do the presentation." In 1 hour. And I'm not prepared for this at all. I wasn't expecting it. Then I can say, I can't believe she sprung that on me. And that represents that I have to give the presentation in 1 hour. Our next listening test, I'll say it 3 times. It's supposed to rain on and off today. It's supposed to rain on and off today. It's supposed to rain on and off today. I said, it's supposed to rain on and off today. First, let's talk about pronunciation. Here we have a contraction, it's. It's supposed to. It's as a contraction represents it is. It's supposed to. Now notice here, supposed to. Suppose is spelled with an ED. It's an ED verb, but you don't hear it at all. It's supposed to. Supposed to. Supposed to. But it's always spelled with an ED verb when the expression is to be supposed to. Now, many students forget the verb to be in this expression. Don't forget the verb to be. It's grammatically incorrect. It is supposed to. I was supposed to. She is supposed to. We are supposed to. Don't forget that verb to be and conjugate your verb to be. It's supposed to rain on and off. On and off. Notice here, the and, you don't hear it at all. It sounds just like a on, off, on, off, on, off. And then you combine that together. On and off, on and off. It's supposed to rain on and off today. When something happens on and off, it means it only happens some of the time of a total time. So in our expression, the total time is today. But if I say it's supposed to rain on and off today, I know that it is not going to rain the total time, but it is going to rain some of the time. and I don't know when it's going to rain. So it might rain for 1 hour, stop for 3 hours, rain for 2 hours, stop for 1 hour, rain for 2 hours, and then stop again. That would be on and off. We commonly use this expression with rain because rain frequently happens on and off. It doesn't happen for the total time of a timeline. But we can also use this expression for other activities as well. For example, I worked as a waitress on and off when I was a student. So I have the total time I was a student, 4 years. And I worked as a waitress. But if I say on and off, it means that I did not work as a waitress the entire time I was a student, so 4 years. Perhaps I worked for 4 months during the summer, and then I didn't work. I focused on school, and then maybe I worked for 2 months, and then I stopped. I worked again for 6 months, and then I stopped. I worked as a waitress on and off. Our next listening test, I'll say it 3 times. I got the gist of it. I got the gist of it. I got the gist of it. I said, I got the gist of it. Here, let's talk about how gist of it, the sounds are combined. The sounds are linked together. And this sounds like gist of it. So I take the last sound on a word and I transfer it to the next sound to help me combine the sounds together. Gist of it, gist of it, gist of it. I got the gist of it. What does this mean? Well, the gist of something is the main idea of something. So if you say, I got the gist of it, here the verb get means understand. I understand, or in the past, I understood the main idea of it. But when you say, I get the gist of it, or I got the gist of it, you're letting the person know that you understand the main idea, but you don't necessarily understand all the smaller details or all the details. You just understand the main idea. For example, her lecture was complicated, but I got the gist of it. So perhaps you're learning something new, and for you, it's complicated. For me, something complicated would be to do with math or science. So if I went to a physics lecture or a quantum mechanics lecture, maybe I understand the overall idea of the lecture, but I don't really understand all the small details. I just have an overall understanding of the main idea. I got the gist of it. Are you ready for your next listening exercise? I'll say it 3 times. Just a heads up that I'm running late. Just a heads up that I'm running late. Just a heads up that I'm running late. I said, just a heads up that I'm running late. For pronunciation, let's talk about heads up, how it combines and links together. Heads up, heads up. So notice that S on heads, when I combine it with my vowel sound in up, I use a z, z to combine that together, and it sounds like one word. Heads up, heads up, heads up. Just a heads up that I'm running late. When you give someone a heads up, so the expression just a heads up, this is used to give someone advanced warning of something. So I'm letting the person know in advance that I'm going to be late, and you use the expression heads up to identify that you're giving a warning. And the expression to run late, this is what native speakers use when we're late. So to be late, we're going to be late, you can use run late. And we commonly use this in the present continuous. I'm running late. Right now, I'm running late, which means I am late, and therefore I'm going to be late for my next appointment, which is likely with you, and that's why I'm giving you a heads up. A native speaker would commonly send a quick text message to a coworker or their boss and say, heads up, running late, stuck in traffic. So I say heads up, letting you know it's advance warning, running late. This is just the essential information, running late, and then stuck in traffic. That's the reason why I'm running late. And now you know I'm not going to be at our scheduled meeting because I'm running late. Are you ready for your last listening exercise? I'll say it 3 times. Here's my quick take on it. Here's my quick take on it. Here's my quick take on it. I said, here's my quick take on it. Let's talk about how the sounds combine for the 3 words, take on it. And it sounds like one word, take on it. Take-on-it. But you have to combine those sounds together. Take on it, take on it. So that's how we transfer sounds. We link the sounds together so 3 individual words can sound like one word. Take on it. Here's my quick take on it. Now, one's take on something, my take on it. This is simply one's opinion or idea on something specific. This is commonly used to ask someone's opinion when you're discussing something specific. For example, what's your take on the company's decision to pay for language classes? So let's say your company decided to pay for your language classes. That's amazing, right? So that's the it. What's your take on it? The it is the company's decision to pay for language classes. What's your take on it? I'm asking you, what's your opinion on this initiative? To answer, you can simply state your opinion. I think it's an amazing idea. So now I want you to practice pronunciation so you can really get comfortable with moving your mouth and producing these sounds at a faster pace. So let's do an imitation exercise. I am going to say each sentence again 3 times, and I want you to repeat it out loud and try to get your pronunciation as close to mine as possible. I can't believe she sprung that on me. I can't believe she sprung that on me. I can't believe she sprung that on me. It's supposed to rain on and off today. It's supposed to rain on and off today. It's supposed to rain on and off today. I got the gist of it. I got the gist of it. I got the gist of it. Just a heads up that I'm running late. Just a heads up that I'm running late. Just a heads up that I'm running late. Here's my quick take on it. Here's my quick take on it. Here's my quick take on it. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Amazing job. Now let's keep practicing. So here's your next listening exercise. And remember, I'll say it 3 times. She has her presentation down pat. She has her presentation down pat. She has her presentation down pat. Did you get this one? I said she has her presentation down pat. Maybe you noticed that has her sounded like has-er, has-er. So we often drop the H on her, has-er, has-er. She has her. She has her presentation down pat. Now, what does down pat mean? To have something down pat is when you have information or a routine memorized perfectly. For example, I have my YouTube video creation process down pat. So you can think of the process as a routine. First I do this, then I do this, then I do this. And I have these steps memorized. I don't even need to think about what should I do to create a video. I have the process down pat. Now, if you have an upcoming speech, presentation, interview, you want to practice so you can memorize what you want to say. And then once you memorize it perfectly, you can say, I'm not nervous. I have my speech down pat. I have my speech perfectly memorized.
I have this whole Chloe thing down pat.
I got my routine down pat.
Generic, we've got every move down pat.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. We didn't have a lot of prep time. We didn't have a lot of prep time. We didn't have a lot of prep time. Could you dictate this one? I said we didn't have a lot of prep time. Of course, didn't is a contraction of did not. We didn't have a lot of. Native speakers will combine these sounds together and it will sound like a lotta, a lotta. We didn't have a lotta prep time. Prep is short for preparation. Native speakers will take this word preparation and shorten it to prep. Prep time simply means time to prepare. That is prep time. For example, the recipe looks delicious, but there's too much prep time. If there's too much prep time, it means it takes too long to prepare this recipe, so you don't want to do it. You could also say, I have to prep for my interview. In this case, prep is short for the verb prepare. I have to prepare for my interview. I have to prep for my interview.
You know what? We gotta prep. Prep time. Let's go.
Go prep the patient, including prep time.
Just do it.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. Thanks for rejigging your schedule. Thanks for rejigging your schedule. Thanks for rejigging your schedule. I said, thanks for rejigging your schedule. Notice how for sounded like an unstressed fur. Thanks for. Thanks for rejigging. Your sounds unstressed your. Thanks for rejigging your schedule. Thanks for rejigging your schedule. Let's talk about the verb to rejig. You probably don't know this. When you rejig something, you change and improve the arrangement of something. The arrangement is the order of something. So in our example, thanks for rejigging your schedule, maybe you moved a meeting from the morning to the afternoon so we could meet for coffee. And I appreciate that. Thanks for rejigging your schedule. Or maybe in a meeting, you let your boss know we rejigged the presentation. Now the video comes before the graphs. So you change the order, the arrangement of the presentation. The video was here and now it's here. And you're doing this because you want to improve the presentation. We rejigged the presentation. Let's try this one more time. I'll say it 3 times. She spoils those kids rotten. She spoils those kids rotten. She spoils those kids rotten. Did you get this one? I said she spoils those kids rotten. When you spoil someone rotten, In this case, rotten is optional. You could just say spoil someone rotten. It means you do whatever they want you to do. You give them whatever they want. So when I say she spoils those kids rotten, generally this isn't considered a good thing because when kids are spoiled rotten, they often develop bad behaviors, bad manners as a result. So this sounds like a negative thing. However, I frequently say my kitties are spoiled rotten, and that is very true. Now notice here the grammar to be spoiled. Again, rotten is optional. You can use it or not use it. It doesn't change the meaning. In this case, to be spoiled, it means the same thing, to receive whatever you want, but it can also mean to be treated very well. Just remember, when we use this with children, it's generally seen as a negative. But if you say, my husband spoils me rotten, my company spoils me rotten, I'm spoiled by my company, those sound more positive because it sounds like you're treated very well.
But we won't spoil them.
It's so easy to please.
I really hope we're not spoiling them.
You sure are spoiling me lately.
Now it's time for you to practice your pronunciation. We're going to do an imitation exercise. I'm going to say each sentence again, and I want you to repeat the sentence out loud, and I'll say each sentence 3 times. Here we go. She has her presentation down pat. She has her presentation down pat. She has her presentation down pat. We didn't have a lot of prep time. We didn't have a lot of prep time. We didn't have a lot of prep time. Thanks for rejigging your schedule. Thanks for rejigging your schedule. Thanks for rejigging your schedule. She spoils those kids rotten. She spoils those kids rotten. She spoils those kids rotten. Amazing job. Now let's keep practicing. So here's your next listening exercise. And remember, I'll say it 3 times. Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Did you get that one? I said, did you break it to him? First, let's talk about the pronunciation changes. Did you? We pronounce this as didja, didja, didja. So I combine those sounds together and I take you and I change it to ya, didja, didja. Did you break it, Tim? Notice the last 2 words really sounded like one word. Tim, Tim. It almost sounded like Tim, the name Tim. And that's because we frequently get rid of the H on him and her at a natural pace, and we connect it to the word before. So it really sounds like im, and then you hear the t from to. Tim, Tim. Did you break it, Tim? Now, what does this mean? To break something to someone is an expression, and we use this when you share news or information with someone, but it's always negative. So maybe you applied for a promotion, but you're not going to get the promotion. So that's the negative news. Did you break it to him that he's not getting the promotion? So did you share this negative news with him? Did you break it to him? Our next listening test, remember to put what you hear in the comments. Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Did you get that one? I said, cut it out, would you? First, let's talk about pronunciation. Did ya? The same thing is happening here with would you. You becomes ya, and I combine those sounds. Would ya, ja, ja, would ya, Would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Now let's talk about cut it out. You'll notice we have T's in between vowels. In American English, when a T comes between vowels, we change that to a D, a very soft D. Cut it out, cut it out. And I pronounce all three as one. Cut it out, cut it out, cut it out. Cut it out, would ya? The expression to cut something out means to stop something that is annoying or frustrating or irritating or unwanted. So let's say you're in a meeting for work and in the background your kids are going crazy. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're fighting. This is behavior that is unwanted, frustrating, irritating, annoying, and you want them to stop. So you can say to your kids, cut it out, would ya? Our next listening exercise, write what you hear in the comments. You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. Did you get that one? I said you gotta kick it up a notch. First, notice how I used gotta. This is a reduction. It's a combination of the words got to, and it's pronounced as one. Gotta, you gotta. You can also say you've gotta, you have got to, but in American English, it's very common to just say you gotta, you gotta. You got to is the same as you have to. Now let's talk about the expression to kick something up a notch. When you kick something up a notch, it's just encouraging you to perform better, work faster, work harder. So let's say you were tasked with assembling 100 boxes. And 2 hours have passed and your boss sees that you've only assembled 20 boxes. And your boss wants to tell you that you need to work harder, you need to work faster, you need to perform better. She can say, you gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta work faster, you gotta work harder. Our next listening exercise, write what you hear in the comments. I'll say it 3 times. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. How'd you do with that one? I said, don't let him get to you. First, let's talk about pronunciation. Don't let him, let him. Notice again, I take that H off of him, I drop the sound, and then I'm left with im, but I combine it with the word before. Let him, let him, let him. Don't let him. Don't let him get to you. Now I said you at the end. Many native speakers will drop this to ya. Don't let him get to ya, get to ya. Just like we saw with did ya, would ya. But I said you. Don't let him get to you. Now what does this mean? When someone gets to you, it means that you become angry, annoyed, irritated, or frustrated because of that person's behavior. But we can also use this in situations. If you get really angry when you're stuck in traffic, I can say, don't let the traffic get to you. So don't let the situation make you angry, because what does being angry do? It doesn't benefit the situation in any way. Don't let the traffic get to you. Don't let your boss's criticism get to you. Don't let it anger you, frustrate you, or annoy you. Our next listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. Write what you hear in the comments. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Did you get that one? What are you looking at? So here we have a very simple sentence, but it might be difficult for you because of those natural pronunciation changes, how I combine my words at a natural pace. What are you sounds like one word. What are ya? What are ya? So the R just becomes and I attach it to what? what are you? Now, I think I said you, but you can also again shorten that to ya, and native speakers commonly do that. So get comfortable with it. What are you? What are ya? What are you? What are ya? But remember, it sounds like one word. What are you? What are you looking at? Here, it's very common to take a word that ends in ing and drop the G sound, that g sound, and just end it on looking at. But notice I combine it with the word that comes next because it's a vowel. Looking at. So instead of looking at, it sounds like nat. And then I combine them. Looking at, looking at. What are you looking at? So how did you do with those listening exercises? Share your score in the comments below. And remember, you are being tested on your ability to understand the words I say, but also the ability to understand what my meaning is. So maybe you understood the words, but you didn't know the expression or the idiom. You didn't know what it meant. So you need both. But don't worry if this was difficult, because the more you practice, the more you study native speakers, the more you add these expressions to your vocabulary, the easier it will become. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say each sentence again, and I want you to imitate me and try to say it as closely to the way I pronounce it. And if you're in a private space, I want you to say it out loud. If you're in a public space, well then try this again when you're at home and you can say it out loud. Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Did you break it to him? Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? Cut it out, would ya? You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. You gotta kick it up a notch. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. Don't let him get to you. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Amazing job. Now let's keep practicing. So here's your next listening exercise. And remember, I'll say it 3 times. We should have had a backup plan. We should have had a backup plan. We should have had a backup plan. I said we should have had a backup plan. Let's talk about the pronunciation. Notice I said we shoulda. We shoulda had. Should have. Native speakers, we combine this to sound like shoulda. Shoulda. Notice that L is silent. Shoulda. Shoulda. We shoulda. We shoulda had. Should have had. We shoulda had a backup plan. Let's take a look at the linking between back up. This is how native speakers combine sounds, so 2 separate words will sound like one word. Back up, back up. So we take the sound from back, the last sound, and we transfer it to the next sound, up, back up. But you have to combine those sounds together so it sounds like one word. Back up, back up. Backup plan, backup plan. We should have had a backup plan. Now, what is a backup plan? A backup plan is an alternative plan that you can use if your original plan fails. Let's say you're going to present at a conference or a meeting. So you bring your computer and your presentation is on the computer. That's your original plan. That's plan A. But it's always smart to have a backup plan. This could be your backup plan. You can put your presentation on a USB, a memory stick, so if there's any issues with your computer, you have a plan B, a backup plan. And then you can say, my computer wouldn't connect to their equipment, but thankfully I had my presentation on a USB. Thankfully, I had a backup plan. Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. Her comment really pissed me off. Her comment really pissed me off. Her comment really pissed me off. I said, her comment really pissed me off. Let's look at the pronunciation of pissed, because here this is an ED, a past simple verb, but the sound of that ED is a very soft T. Pissed, pissed. Now, when we say this in a sentence and there are words that come after, you almost don't hear that T. So you can't really distinguish that it's in the past simple. It's the context of the sentence that will make it obvious that it is the past. Her comment really pissed me off. Now, what does this mean? To piss someone off. This means to make someone really angry. Now, note that this is an informal expression, and it can also be considered impolite. It would be considered impolite if your name is Mark and I said, Mark, you're really pissing me off. That would be impolite. But native speakers commonly use this to complain about people. So I could be talking to my husband or my best friend and say, Mark really pissed me off today. In that context, it's not impolite, but it would be impolite to look directly at someone and say, you really piss me off. So don't do that. Now, we also use this in the structure to be pissed off. The pronunciation is the same, pissed off, to be pissed off. This is simply to be really angry. For example, I was so pissed off when I came home to a completely dirty house, even though my kids promised to clean up after the party. Do you want to do another listening exercise? I'll say it 3 times. Take what she says with a grain of salt. Take what she says with a grain of salt. Take what she says with a grain of salt. I said, take what she says with a grain of salt. Here, the pronunciation is clear, but if you don't know what this idiom means, then you won't understand it. So the idiom is to take something with a grain of salt. We use this to say that you shouldn't believe everything someone tells you because it might not be true. So let's say your friend tells you that, oh, Gina says she'll help me move this weekend. But from your experience, Gina likes to make a lot of promises, but she doesn't always follow up with those promises. She doesn't always fulfill those promises. Then you might say, take what she says with a grain of salt. You're letting your friend know that Gina might not actually do what she says. And let's focus on the grammar here. What do you notice about this sentence? Take what she says with a grain of salt. What verb tense is this in? We're using the imperative. Take is in the imperative because the sentence begins with a base verb. There's no subject here. That's how you can identify the imperative. And the imperative is used to give instructions, orders, or suggestions. So I'm suggesting that my friend take what she says with a grain of salt. Your next listening exercise, I'll say it 3 times. It's high time we let her go. It's high time we let her go. It's high time we let her go. I said it's high time we let her go. For pronunciation, let's talk about let her go. Let her go. Here, notice how her sounds like You don't hear the H, but I also attach it to the word before. So I link those sounds together. Letter, 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 let her go, let her go. It's high time we let her go. Let's look at the expression, it's high time. When you say it's high time that something should happen, you're saying that something should happen now and not later. And when you use this expression, you also suggest that it should have already happened. So we shoulda already let her go. But we didn't, so we should do it now because it's high time we let her go. And in my opinion, it's high time that you enrolled in the Finally Fluent Academy. It's high time. You should have already done this. You should have already done this, but maybe you haven't, so you should do it now and not later. What's the Finally Fluent Academy? Well, this is my premium training program where we study native English speakers on TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English and add the most common expressions to your speech. So we do exactly what you're doing now, but you use native speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, so you get a variety of different accents and styles of speech. Plus, you'll have me as your teacher, and I'll be there to coach you every step of the way. So it's high time you join the Finally Fluent Academy, and you can look for the link in the description to learn more. Coming back to our example, it's high time you let her go. Now, to let someone go, this is an alternative way of saying to fire someone. When you fire someone, they permanently stop working for the company. So when you let someone go, they permanently stop working for the company. It's high time we let her go. Remember, you're suggesting you should have let her go a while ago. So now you better do it. Let's do one last listening exercise. I'll say it 3 times. He looked a little frazzled. He looked a little frazzled. He looked a little frazzled. I said he looked a little frazzled. Let's talk about pronunciation. A little, little. Native speakers, we don't pronounce T's between 2 vowels. It will be either a very soft D, little, little, dull, or you just won't hear it, lil, lil, a little, a little. And notice the is connected to it, a lil, a lil, a little. He looked a little frazzled. Frazzled, here it's a past simple ed verb, but the pronunciation is a very soft D, and you almost don't hear it. Frazzled, very soft, frazzled, frazzled. To be frazzled or to look frazzled, this is when you are or look very tired, but you also look very worried or anxious. So I might look frazzled if you see me, and normally my hair is nice and in a nice position, but you see me and my hair is crazy. I have makeup a little bit under my eyes. Maybe my shirt is a little messy as well, and visibly you can see that I might look frazzled. And then obviously I'll look very tired and maybe like very worried and anxious. So you might see it visibly in my appearance, and you can see it on my facial expression as well. So if you see a coworker that looks frazzled, you might say, "Are you okay? You look a little frazzled." Amazing job improving your listening skills of fast English. Now let's improve your pronunciation. Let's do an imitation exercise. I'm going to say each sentence again, but I'm going to pause, and then I want you to repeat the sentence out loud and try to follow my pronunciation Exactly. So try to imitate my pronunciation. And I'll say each sentence 3 times. So I want you to repeat it out loud 3 times. We should have had a backup plan. We should have had a backup plan. We should have had a backup plan. Her comment really pissed me off. Her comment really pissed me off. Her comment really pissed me off. Take what she says with a grain of salt. Take what she says with a grain of salt. Take what she says with a grain of salt. It's high time we let her go. It's high time we let her go. It's high time we let her go. He looked a little frazzled. He looked a little frazzled. He looked a little frazzled. Amazing job. Now let's keep practicing. So here's your next listening exercise. And remember, I'll say it 3 times. She's leaps and bounds more qualified than him. She's leaps and bounds more qualified than him. She's leaps and bounds more qualified than him. I said she's leaps and bounds more qualified than him. Notice the contraction, she's. This is she is, the verb to be. Native speakers will always contract this. She's. Let's talk about leaps and bounds. Notice how bounds, the D is not pronounced. Bounds, bounds. And here, when we have and between 2 words, you can reduce that just to leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds, leaps and bounds. She's leaps and bounds more qualified than him. Notice how you don't hear the H on him, than him. But if we want to combine those sounds together and say it like one word, then him. Let's talk about what this means. She's more qualified than him. You understand that. When I add leaps and bounds, this is a modifier. It makes more qualified stronger. So it sounds like greatly more qualified, a lot more qualified. And it can also mean quickly if that's the context. But in this context, it's a modifier that means greatly. So you can say, I've improved my English by leaps and bounds. By leaps and bounds. Here, notice how you have to include the word by. I've improved my English, and you want to modify that improve to make it sound stronger. I've improved my English by leaps and bounds. So write that in the comments if you feel like my lessons are helping you improve your English by leaps and bounds. Jennifer, I've improved my English by leaps and bounds. Put that in the comments.
It's leaps and bounds ahead of mine. Which
you are just progressing by leaps and bounds.
Virtucon has grown by leaps and bounds.
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. Is the agenda set in stone? Is the agenda set in stone? Is the agenda set in stone? I said, is the agenda set in stone? First, let's talk about the agenda. Notice how I have that long E sound, the agenda, because agenda starts with a vowel. This is not a rule that native speakers always follow. I could equally say the agenda, the agenda, the agenda. So if you hear both, it's just not something a native speaker always does. Let's talk about set in stone. Notice we have a T between 2 vowels. So we can pronounce that T as a soft D, set din. So I take that sound and I connect it to the next word in, and it sounds like din, din, set in, set in stone. And I'll say all three of those words together because they're an expression. The expression is to be set in stone. In our example, the verb to be is. It starts the sentence because the sentence is in question form. Is the agenda set in stone? To be set in stone. When something is set in stone, in this case, the agenda, it's in a state that is very difficult, if not impossible, to change. So the agenda could be set in stone because all the speakers are confirmed. You've booked the hotel room. You've already paid for the hotel room. People have already booked their ticket to come to the event. So it's difficult, if not impossible, to change any aspects of the agenda. It's set in stone. We commonly use this expression in the negative to say our plans aren't set in stone. If I say that to you, it means that I can change my plans. So perhaps I told you what my plans are, and then you want to do something different. I can say, oh, don't worry, our plans aren't set in stone. So it's saying I can change my plans are flexible. So you can use this both in the positive or the negative.
Because nothing's set in stone.
Oof, is that set in stone?
These nicknames, are they set in stone?
Let's try this again. I'll say it 3 times. I was tossing and turning all night. I was tossing and turning all night. I was tossing and turning all night. Did you get this one? I said I was tossing and turning all night. We have and, so remember, same thing as before, tossing in, I can change that to but I have to connect it to the word before, tossing and turning. So I will say all 3, tossing and turning, as one word. Tossing and turning, tossing and turning, tossing and turning. Now, commonly, a native speaker will drop the G sound on tossing, ing, and just say tossin', tossin'. I personally don't do this, but many native speakers do. Tossin', tossing, tossin'. But same thing, you have that sound, tossin' and turnin', tossin' and turnin', or like I said, tossing and turning, tossing and turning. The pronunciation is quite clear, but if you don't know what this means, you won't know how to communicate with a native speaker. I was tossing and turning all night. To toss and turn, this is used to say you had a very restless sleep and you were moving a lot. That is the tossing and turning. That's the movement. You were moving a lot while you were sleeping, so you had a restless sleep. If you were tossing and turning all night, it means you had a restless sleep, so it means right now you're tired. You could say, sorry, I'm yawning so much. I tossed and turned all night. And that means you had a terrible sleep, so now you're tired.
That's what's got you tossing and turning.
He's always tossing and turning. Man, then I spend all night tossing and turning trying to figure out what I should have said.
Are you ready for your next listening exercise? I'll say it 3 times. Just give it a go and see. Just give it a go and see. Just give it a go and see. Did you get this one? I said, just give it a go and see. Let's talk about give it. We can combine these together and I'm going to use that v sound. Give it, vit, vit, give it, give it. So that's how I can say these 2 words as one, give it. And I'll do the same thing with a go. I'll just pronounce it as one word, a go. Give it a go. Give it a go. Give it a go. Just give it a go and see. What does this mean? To give something a go simply means to try something. So if I say just give it a go, I'm saying just try it. Maybe your friend invited you to go dancing, but you don't know how to dance. I could say, just give it a go. Now here the it is dancing. So I could say, just give dancing a go. Just give dancing a go. Remember in the original example, it was just give it a go and see. Here, the see represents and see what happens. See what happens when you try dancing. Maybe you are really good at it, or maybe you're not very good at it, but you had so much fun, you don't even care that you weren't good at it. So if you send me a message and say, Jennifer, I'm not sure if I can give a presentation in English, I'll say to you, just give it a go. So I want you to write in the comments right now, Jennifer, I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go. Put that in the comments. Jennifer, I'll give it a go.
I'll give it a go.
Let's give it a go.
Let's give it a go and see what the future brings.
Let's try this one more time. I'll say it 3 times. We have a lot riding on this pitch. We have a lot riding on this pitch. We have a lot riding on this pitch. I said we have a lot riding on this pitch. Notice when I said the sentence fast, I did not contract we have. I didn't say we've a lot riding on this pitch. I didn't say that. I said we have a lot riding on this pitch. That's because in American English, we do not contract have when have is the main verb. We only contract have when it's an auxiliary verb. I could change this and say we've got a lot riding on this pitch. In this case, have is the auxiliary verb, got is the main verb, so I can form that contraction. We have, we've got a lot riding on this pitch. You're probably wondering what this means. When you have a lot riding on something, it means that something, whatever the something is extremely important to your success, whatever success means to you. Now, in this case, the something is this pitch. This pitch is extremely important to this person's overall success. What does this pitch mean? In the business world, a pitch is a presentation, but the purpose is to convince someone to do something or to buy something. So it's extremely important that this pitch, this presentation is successful. And it's extremely important for the person's overall success, likely their career success. To use a previous expression that you learned, I was tossing and turning all night thinking about this pitch. My career is riding on it.
Everything is riding on it.
Well, this is it, folks. Everything is riding on this pitch.
So much rides on this.
Now let's do an imitation exercise so you can practice this pronunciation. So I'm going to say each sentence again, but I want you to say the sentence out loud, and then we'll repeat that 3 times. So let's do that now. She's leaps and bounds more qualified than him. She's leaps and bounds more qualified than him. She's leaps and bounds more qualified than him. Is the agenda set in stone? Is the agenda set in stone? Is the agenda set in stone? I was tossing and turning all night. I was tossing and turning all night. I was tossing and turning all night. Just give it a go and see. Just give it a go and see. Just give it a go and see. We have a lot riding on this pitch. We have a lot riding on this pitch. We have a lot riding on this pitch. Awesome job with this lesson. Think of how many expressions you added to your speech, how much you practiced your speaking skills as well. Now, do you want me to make more lessons just like this? If you do, then put let's go in the comments so I know you're ready for another lesson. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And if you're ready to keep learning, you should watch this lesson right now. We review a news article together, so watch it right now.